essential learning competencies. So my presentation today is actually um, a bit comprehensive. Now, for all you know, DepEd Region 11 during this global pandemic is revolutionary as it remains forward thinking in carrying out its mandates under the framework of Sulong Edukalidad. It continues to navigate diversified interventions and strategies to sustain delivery of quality, accessible, relevant, and liberating basic education. Thus, I teach of the region as a comprehensive led learning continuity plan is hopeful for that, and you will know what is it. Now, the presentation outline in today's journey about the most essential learning competencies, we are going to have a glimpse on the region's context, leading to our support or our commitment for the K-12 most essential learning competencies. Second, as to our framework of the region, as to our learning continuity plan. And another is for us to look into deeper, and this will be walked through in a form of walkthrough by the respective learning area experts on K-12 most essential learning competencies. And the last is where we are heading, our way forward. Now, before the COVID-19 pandemic has come into picture, if we look at Davao region, each year we are baffled by many disasters, and these have a major impact on learners and education systems. Be it in a smaller or bigger scale, learners are generally out of school for some period of time due to disasters. That the impact on the education to learners, all of these existing challenges have certain damage to education infrastructure. Not only that, often leave many children in need of critical education support, and I'm talking about learners with special needs. They are left helpless and ensuring their long-term or longer-term development. And so, now that we are in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, which poses challenges to all various sectors in DepEd, not only that, and DepEd is one that has to really change its landscape of operation in order to become viable in this trying time. And so we are very thankful for DepEd Region 11 to make it responsive that in this global pandemic, we have our ITITs, integrating technology, academic community, and the household, ensuring that every learner in DepEd Region 11 is safe and protected anytime, anywhere. And not only that, DepEd Region 11, as it integrates technology, academic community, and households, and guided by the DepEd's vision and core values, pushes its 12 goals under the Learning Continuity Plan. And this is ensuring learning continuity through the K-12 basic education curriculum. Adjustments, alignment, learning materials, deployment of multiple learning delivery modalities, provision of corresponding training to teachers, and school leaders, and proper orientation of parents or to our community leaders. We embedded all this as mechanism in our learning continuity plan. And that, if we look at DepEd Region 11's learning continuity plan, we have one, determine the context of the learner and their families. Second, develop and establish a contextualized hybrid learning management system, and that is our learning management system where every school, every division, and every learner or every household will have enhanced preparation of learners in meeting the K-12 basic education program standards and competencies under the most essential learning competencies. And fourth, map out all materials necessary for the delivery of the lessons vis-a-vis the MELCs. And fifth, develop self-learning materials that are aligned with the MELCs. And sixth, facilitate conversion of self-learning materials or our self-learning modules into ebook, or interactive video lessons, radio scripts, and TV-based scripts or episodes ready for the different modalities. And next to that, we have to utilize our ICT in the management, communication, accreditation, and supervision of private schools and delivery of support and resources in all field offices. Provide necessary retooling and upskilling strategies to all personnel in all governance. And I'm talking to this that not only in the school level, but also in the division and in the region, that we are going to provide or capacitate our key personnel. Ninth, orient parents and learners on the different modalities and learning on significant, and especially on their significant role as parents or being facilitators of learning. Strengthen partnership of key players to ensure delivery of all learning modalities in schools and collaboration in all governance. 11th, protect the well-being of the learners, our teaching and non-teaching personnel, and education leaders by ensuring a safe and conducive learning and working spaces or environment. And finally, we need still to celebrate success and also reward our key players and partners for the effort under the framework or for the delivery of quality service or sulong edukalidad. And we capture all this in our framework of the ITIDs. And I'd like to each one to look into the effort of the region that is now we are doing the upskilling of teachers. And on the aspect or in the aspect of capacity building to teachers and school leaders, the region has to ensure that all teachers are not only strengthened to become resilient, adaptable, or able to manage resource and technology literacy or technological literacy, but most specifically on the main concern on the delivery of the K-12 basic education. And that it is therefore the primary goal of the region to orient you teachers and our education leaders on the most essential learning competencies and able to let you or appreciate the MELCs, as we are now, if we look at our calendar, we are in a shortened period because barely each quarter we are going to have 8 weeks. So with that, we are ensuring that the most essential learning competencies are delivered to our respective clientele and our learners. And under that, imbibed with the philosophy and principles, as well as the pillars of sulong edukalidad, it is hoped that teachers will be able to respond. And it is you, our trainers now, who is going to set that one into motion to the goals of the K-12 basic education program. And if we look at our K-12 most essential learning competencies, we have as our overarching, or shall we say, impression that the MELCs is not a new curriculum. It is not a departure from the K-12 curriculum. And that the standards in terms of the content and performance standards are retained, and that our MELCs are focused on the attainment of 21st century skills. The codes and tagged materials are retained for the merged and retained competencies. And that all learning areas will still be taught. And that the MELCs are aligned with the sulong edukalidad framework. Another thing that we should know, that if we look at the desirable learning competencies, and so with the essential learning competencies, the DLCs, or the desirable learning competencies, are those that what may enhance education but may not be necessary in building foundational skills. And that the essential one are those that our students need, and these are indispensable. And that in terms of, if we look at the teaching learning process, this equip learners for subsequent grade levels, or consequently for building the skills in subsequent grade levels, or for lifelong learning. And so this is how, or these are the things that our DepEd Central Office and our field offices look at it. Now, for the characteristics of essential learning competencies, these are the things that we should know, that it is aligned with the national and state and local standards, and that it connects the content to higher concepts across content areas. It is applicable to real life situations, and that in general, these are important as it is very essential, not only for our learners, but also it has something to do with the real learning in the community or in the real world. It is underscored specifically that we are looking at it, that if we talk about the most essential learning competencies, these are enduring competencies. And that if we look at endurance, this gives us a view that a learning competency is considered enduring, because this is one aspect that really put premium, that if it is enduring, it remains with the learners long after a test or unit of study is completed, or if it is useful beyond a single test or unit study. That's how we look at it. So, in the consideration uh, of the most essential learning competencies, this is one great aspect that we look at. And that later, when the different learning areas will be sharing to you or with you all the unpacking, or shall we say, all the MELCs from kindergarten to the different learning areas, you will get to know better from the K to 12 curriculum guides that we have, and then the essential learning competencies, and then later to the most essential learning competencies. And you will appreciate on that, on how the process was being, um, or the process of identifying the MELCs. It's not just identifying it because we just consider it in that way, but it goes with the process. And so the different learning area supervisors will walk through on with you on that, and so you will appreciate on the effort of our experts, and specifically the entire strand of the office of the curriculum or undersecretary for curriculum and instruction, particularly our Bureau of Curriculum and Development, that it has, or that they, everybody has really considered all or many things from the review of the curriculum guide, and then move to the consideration of the essential learning competencies to the most essential learning competencies. Next, from the learning competencies before, from I believe a total of more than 10,000 learning competencies, and it is now reduced to more than 4,000 competencies. So the process is not just easy. And so these are the things that we have considered. And then next to that, we have the mapping of the essential and desirable competencies that were mentioned a while back, and then the identifying of the prerequisite knowledge and skills within the learning area or the different learning area, and then it passes also analysis of interconnectedness of prerequisite knowledge and skills among learning competencies across learning areas. And then, yes, I have dwelled on this as to the essential learning competencies to MELCs. And so it's fitting that we need to know more about this through the walkthrough that you will be having, and that the consideration that the most determining factor na talagang tandaan natin is that we have the endurance, no, as the determining factor, that once that certain competency remains with the learner long after a test of a unit or unit of study is completed, and if this competency is useful beyond a single test or unit of study, then that is considered or the most essential learning competency. And that another thing that we need to be aware of, that while it's true that they go with the process of mapping the competency, identifying the prerequisite or analysis, but more so that they considered that there are those that they have retained, there are competencies that have been merged, and there are those that have been rephrased, and there are those that have been dropped. So that's how the process is what we consider tedious and daunting tasks. And so finally, for our region, we map out the available learning competencies. Because of that, because this is how we populate the given most essential learning competencies with all the identified or the existing available resource that we have, because we want the teacher now to really know what are the things or what are these learning resource available in your respective divisions, available in your respective schools that are already quality assured, and even those that are for quality assurance process but are closely and can be used in the delivery of the most essential learning competencies. We are doing such because these are data and these are vital information for you teachers to be able to make sure that you have ample available learning resource once you are going and once we open the school year 2020-2021. And finally, as our way forward, we hope that each one will continue, especially our writers and developers of the self-learning modules, for the quality assurance of the learning modules, and the establishment of monitoring and evaluation of the online training model. And this is the one that we are talking about, our training, because we do not want that all of us will just be listening to the training or webinars, but more so that we are going to make sure that all the things that we are heading for are really delivered well, and not only that, we are equipped for the school year 2020-2021. And we would like each of you now to catch sight of our collaboration, the collaboration of all offices in all governance, starting from schools, your schools division offices, and the region, and so with the central office, because we believe now that we journey together, not only learning together of the kind of environment that we have now, and we come together as we open for the school year 2021 for the delivery of quality basic education and ensuring that each learner is safe and protected while they continue their education in this new normal. God bless everyone.
Our region, my courtesy to the Department of Education officials, of course to the Regional Director of Region 11, to ARD, to the different chiefs of the functional divisions, the superintendents of the 11 schools division offices, of course with the assistant schools division superintendents, the CID chiefs, to all the education program supervisors in CLMD and in CID, And of course, my dearest kindergarten education program supervisors and teachers. Today, we are going to have the walkthrough of the most essential learning competencies for kindergarten. So in the light of the COVID-19 and the consequent shortened academic year, the Department of Education, through the Bureau of Curriculum Development, Curriculum Standards Development Division, has produced a list of the most essential learning competencies, or what we call the MELCs. This was done in order to ensure that the grade level standards, along with the corresponding content and performance standards set for each learning area, are still attained. In the process of identifying the MELCs, the endurance criterion was used as the sole determiner, guided by the requirement that a learning competency be useful in lifelong learning. Further, the MELCs identified are those that work in close association with other competencies in other subjects, thus maintaining the curricular quality of integration. So this is the picture of the most essential learning competencies matrix. Of course, this is for K to 12 curriculum. So in here, we will be talking about the kindergarten most essential learning competencies. And as we see here, let's try to answer what is MELC. So this is all about the most essential learning competency. So what is this? So this serves as a reference to assist the teachers in identifying the most important learning competencies to be developed, acquired by the learners, and must be prioritized in this situation. MELCs with asterisk are rephrased and deemed essential in learning competencies in the achievement of content and performance standards. So MELC is for school year 2020-2021 only. So meaning to say, this only intended for this school year, of which we will start on August and hopefully we will end on April 2021. So this is our example of the most essential learning competencies of kindergarten. So as you see here, so we have the quarter one or the week one. So we have here the content standards. Okay, for example, ang bata ay nagkakaroon ng pag-unawa sa sariling ugali at damdamin. So of course, the MELC still has the performance standards. So we have here, ang bata ay nakapagpapamalas ng kakayahang kontrolin ang sariling damdamin at pag-uugali, gumawa ng desisyon at magtagumpay sa kanyang mga gawain. Okay, from these standards, we have the most essential learning competencies. So there are 5. So meaning to say, this is somewhat a subclass, sub-competencies. So we have here, there are 5. So nakikilala ang sarili, pangalan at apelyido, kasarian, gulang or kapanganakan, then gusto or di gusto, then use the proper expression in introducing oneself. So yung sub-competencies of this MELC, this is the most essential learning competencies, and like what we said, there is what we call embedded competencies. So along with this main MELC, we have this sub-competencies. They use the proper expression in introducing oneself. So we have a sample here. So I know that kindergarten teachers, they know a lot of this. So as we see, this is now what we're going to teach first. Okay, this one, the proper expression in introducing oneself. Then talk about one's personal experiences, narrate events of the day, then naipakikita ang tiwala sa sarili na tugunan ang sariling pangangailangan ng mag-isa. Kaya halimbawa dyan, maghugas ng kamay, kumain, magbihis, magligpit, tapusin ang gawaing nasimulan. Okay. So this is our example of the MELC. So again, we have this what we call the MELC, meaning the main MELC, and we have what we call the sub-competencies. So as a general rule, learning competencies are retained if it satisfies the endurance criterion, which greatly contributes to lifelong learning and is a prerequisite skill to the next grade level. Some of the competencies are merged or clustered if they have the same objective or learning intention, thus can be combined into one comprehensive learning competency. Okay, we have also the case that learning competencies are dropped when if they are too specific and the articulation is similar to that of a learning objective, then deemed appropriate to be introduced in an early quarter or grade level or moved to a later quarter or grade level. Then sometimes they are recurring and subsumed in another learning area. And we have here a learning competencies. And of course, rephrased, this is to be more concise. Okay, this is our process of identifying the MELCs. So we have here the K-12 curriculum guide. From there, we come up with the essential learning competencies and then the most essential learning competencies. So from the different learning competencies, there we go. We have now the list of the most essential learning competencies. So the K-12 most essential learning competencies are not a departure from the K-12 curriculum. Of course, the MELCs are still part of the K-12 curriculum. Then, of course, there is standards, the content and performance standards. Then focus on the attainment of the 21st century skills. The codes and tagged materials are retained for merged and retained competencies. And all learning areas will still be taught. So if we're going to look into the current curriculum guide versus the MELCs, for kindergarten, we have current curriculum guide, we have 241. And right for the total MELCs that we have for four quarters, we have 66 MELCs. So as you see, there is 1% MELCs as compared to the total number of MELCs. Kasi yung total number that we have is 5,548. So kindergarten MELCs are 66 in number. So this is 1% of the total number of MELCs. So for the kindergarten teachers, you are going to deal 66 MELCs for one school year. Field implementers are encouraged to contextualize the most essential learning competencies in order to accommodate the varying contexts of learners, teachers, learning environment, and support structures, considering both the content and performance standards. So how to use the MELC? So we as kindergarten teachers, we should know how to use the MELC. So the Department of Education, through the Bureau of Curriculum Development, Curriculum Standards Development Division, has developed the most essential learning competencies to address the challenges brought about by the global pandemic. Its negative impact in the educational system, which include but not limited to the shortened school year, limited face-to-face interaction of teachers, of course, with our learners. So meaning to say, for this school year, we have really limited interaction face-to-face with our learners, and other instructional delivery related concerns pose serious problem, most specifically to early childhood learners. Okay, this is now the call for the kindergarten teachers, because it is really give us a problem because we're dealing early graders, young ones, meaning to say this is their first year supposedly in school, by entering kindergarten. So thus, the MELCs ensure that all 5-year-old, so these are now our kindergarten learners, 5-year-old Filipino learners achieve the content and performance standards expected of them in various learning domains. So always remember our domains, developmental domains in kindergarten. So in the process of identifying the MELCs, the endurance criterion was used as the sole determiner. Endurance is defined as the learning competency that remains with learners long after a test is completed or is useful beyond a single test or unit of study. So finally, the MELCs identified under the 7 developmental domains. Okay, still remember our 7 developmental domains? Of course you do. Kindergarten teachers along with our education program supervisors in kindergarten. So these are the 7 developmental domains are those that work in close association with the circular themes from the kindergarten curriculum guide, which will be used for each lesson and activity for the week. So how to use the MELCs? The MELCs identified in kindergarten may be taught repeatedly. Okay, take note. Okay, the MELCs identified in kindergarten may be taught repeatedly to help the learner acquire the necessary knowledge, skills, and values. So take note of this. The MELCs identified in kindergarten may be taught repeatedly. So this is to achieve mastery of the skills. Remember, we are developing the 7 domains. So the skills. So this will somehow help our learners acquire the necessary knowledge, skills, and values. It is also recommended that the teacher unpack the MELCs into more specific learning competencies or objectives using the kindergarten curriculum guide. So we're still going to have our kindergarten curriculum guide, our KCG. Then the teacher may add more sub-competencies depending on the need of the learners. So again, take note of this. It is also recommended that the teacher unpacks the MELCs into more specific learning competencies or objectives using the PCG. Then the teacher may add, okay, always, because this can be our context. So the teacher may add more sub-competencies depending on the need of the learners. So meaning to say, in this part, we, the teachers of the kindergarten, are encouraged to contextualize or to contextualize the competencies based on the need of our learners. So if for one competency perhaps our learners cannot master yet a particular skill, then we can add more sub-competencies. Okay? So the MELCs identified in kindergarten, okay, yun, that is, we are going to, this is what we call taught repeatedly, right? So this is our now example. This is what I give a while back. So this is our example, MELCs for kindergarten. So quarter 1, week 1. So again, as you see, we have the content standards, we have the performance standards, and this column is for most essential learning competencies, and we have the sub-competencies. This is what has been emphasized a while back, that in this portion, we, the teachers, can add or may add sub-competencies or additional competencies depending on the need of the learners. So again, if the learners cannot master yet the skills, so that the teachers can add some competencies along with that most essential learning competencies. So we are going to look into our kindergarten curriculum guide. So you have the copy of the MELCs, and of course, always bring with you also the copy of your kindergarten curriculum guide, so that you will be guided with the sub-competencies to go along with that MELCs. Okay? So this is a sample for the quarter 2, week 2. Okay, still, we have the content standards, we have the performance standards, we have the most essential learning competencies, and we have the sub-competencies. So if we're going to look into the what is that? The things listed, the MELCs listed in the full package of the most essential learning competencies, we will find the MELCs for kindergarten on these pages. So this is the first page in there, the kindergarten. So you have here, this is now really the picture of the contents of the MELCs. So we have quarter 1 or the first quarter, and as you see, we have what we call the duration. So at most, we are guided when to have this particular MELC be taught to our learners because of this duration. So as you see, the duration is not given to us as day 1, day 2, day 3, 4, and 5, but it's given to us as a week. Okay, as a week. But as we teach this particular MELC, always remember that we can add some sub competencies. So if this is the most essential learning competencies, then if we feel that our learners could not master right away the skill emphasized or the domain emphasized in this MELC, then we can add sub competencies. So we have here, for example, we have this one, nakikilala ang sarili. This is what we have presented in our sample a while back. So this is the second MELC for week 2. So for week 2, we will focus the themes on nasasabi ang mga sariling pangangailangan ng walang pag-aalinlangan at nakasusunod sa mga itinakdang tuntunin at gawain that those are the routines sa paaralan at silid-aralan. Okay? So ito yung tinitingnan natin. So we have here, it is all about disiplina, yung konsepto na ibigay natin dito. This is the disiplina. And for week 3 ng quarter 1, we will be talking about, we will let our learners demonstrate an understanding of letters. Ayan. So this is now week 3, sort and classify objects according to one attribute, property, that is about the shape, the color, size, function, and use. Okay, so this is now, so we have 3 weeks with 3 most essential learning competencies. So we have here also the week 4 of quarter 1. And as you see that. And then we are now introducing in week 4, we are now introducing the letter, number, or word that is different in group. So we have nais sa kikilos ang sariling kakayahan sa iba't ibang paraan, halimbawa sa pag-awit, pagsayaw, at iba pa. So that's for week 4. For week 5, we will focus on nakikilala ang mga pangunahing emosyon. So tuwa, takot, galit, at lungkot. Then tell which 2 letters, numbers, or words in a group are the same. So that's for week 5. Then of course for week 6, recognize symmetry. Yan. We have week 7. This is about the function of each basic body part. Demonstrate movements using different body parts. Then week 8, name the 5 senses and their corresponding body parts. We have the week 9, identify one's basic needs and ways to care for one's body. Then week 10, practice ways to care for one's body. So as you see, for quarter 1, we have 10 weeks for quarter 1 to deal with the most essential learning competencies. Then for quarter 2, so we have here quarter 2, we have Okay, this is the week 1. Natutukoy na may pamilya ang bawat isa. For week 2, natutukoy kung sino-sino ang bumubuo ng pamilya. Week 3, na ilalarawan kung paano nagkakaiba at nagkakatulad ang bawat pamilya. Then week 4, this is all about pagmamahal sa mga kasapit ng pamilya. As you see, for quarter 2, we are going to talk about more about family. Okay? So, dito natin to bata, yung about sa pamilya. Yung concept nila about family. Dito yan sa quarter 2. Then, for week 5, name the places and the things found in the classroom, school, and community. Because our content standards here, the child demonstrates an understanding of acquiring new words, widening his or her vocabulary, links to her or his experiences. So in this part na, sa week 5, the child demonstrates an understanding of objects in the environment, then have properties or attributes. So this time, our learners will talk about the colors, the size, shapes, and functions, and that objects can be manipulated based on these properties and attributes. So go to week 6, give the names of family members, school personnel, and community helpers, and the roles they play or jobs they do or things that they used to. Okay, so those are the samples, or those are the MELCs identified for quarters 1 and quarters 2. Then additional for quarters 2, we have the week 7. So we have week 7. We have here. We will talk about the polite greetings and courteous expressions in appropriate situations. Then week 8, talk about likes, dislikes, the foods, those are the foods, the pets, toys, games, friends, and places. Then talk about family members, pets, toys, foods, or members of the community using various appropriate descriptive words. Okay, so repeatedly done. Diba? As you notice, as we choose about the MELCs, so they are repeatedly presented in every quarter. Then week 9, tell and describe the different kinds of weather, that is the sunny, rainy, cloudy, stormy, windy. Then observe and record the weather daily as part of the opening routine. Okay. Then week 10, identify what we wear and use for each kind of weather. So this comprises quarter 2. So still we have 10 weeks in quarter 2. Okay. For part of the second quarter, part of the second quarter is the tracing activity on tracing, copying and writing the letters of the alphabet. Then straight lines, then combination of straight and slanting lines, then combination of straight and curved lines. Then we have rounded strokes with loops. Then write once, give a name. So we introduce now the letters according to how are they written, how they look, yung mga letters of the alphabet. Then for week 3, so dito sa week 3, the child demonstrates an understanding of concepts of size, length, weight, time, and money. So tell the names of the days in a week, month, and a year. So that's for week 1. Week 1 in quarter 3 or third quarter. So as you see, with you, we will give you copies of the MELCs, but I guess that you already have copies of your MELC. So I hope that you will be walking through with that MELCs. You open that one because that would be the MELCs now would be our Bible, but along with that, MELC. Of course, always also bring with you your curriculum guide. Okay, so with that, we have this. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. So this is what Benjamin Franklin tells us. Okay, and then another thing that we need to remember, children don't care what a teacher knows unless they know the teacher cares. We need to care our learners this time more. We need to give more care on them because it's a different setup, different delivery of the modality, different delivery of the learning for this pandemic. So we need to care more about our learners. Then if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way we learn. Okay? And with that, thank you very much. Then, this is Annalisa Casas Almazan, your kindergarten focal person in the regional office. Good day, everyone.
Good day, everyone. Yours truly is the focal person of MTV MLE for today's regional training of trainers. In this time of threat, challenges, and uncertainties brought by about COVID-19, the directive by our dear Deputy Secretary Leonor Magtulis Briones is to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the learners, teachers, and personnel of the department, while also finding ways for learning to continue. And it is strongly supported by our beloved Regional Director, Dr. Evelyn R. Pitalbero, and our CLM Chief, Dr. Janet G. Baloso. That is why we have the MELCs, or most essential learning competencies, in all subject area. Process identifying the MELCs. So we have the framework here. We get it from the K-12 curriculum guide and identify the essential learning competencies, and have to again select the most essential learning competencies. So with this pandemic crisis, we have to shorten our academic calendar for the year 2020-21 with the different delivery modes or model of instruction. MELCs in mother tongue. What are the MELCs in the mother tongue? The endurance criterion was used in the process of identifying the MELCs. Which learning competencies were considered enduring if the learning competencies or LC is useful in lifelong learning? But be reminded, the field, we are encouraged to contextualize the most essential learning competencies in order to accommodate the varying context of learners, teachers, learning environment, and support structures, considering both the content and performance standard. With this, Filipino learners are guaranteed with relevant and quality basic education despite the current health crisis. Which learning competencies were considered endurance? Those that work in close association with other competencies in other subjects. Example, interprets a pictograph based on given legend. As we go on with our seminar or training, we have to consider the number of learning competencies in mother tongue. So we have here for grade 1, Mother Tongue Curriculum Guide, we have 768, and Most Essential Learning Competencies 71. For grade 2, we have 602 Curriculum Guide and MELCs 38. For grade 3, we have 368 and 26 MELCs. Total of 1,738 for Curriculum Guide and 135 MELCs. MELCs are considerably less than the original number of learning competencies in the curriculum because of two factors. A, we have recurrence is limited. For example, grade 1. Grade 1, the learning competencies for grade 1, we have participate actively during story reading by making comments and asking questions. Grade 2, if you observe, there's a recurrence here. Participate actively during story reading by making comments and asking questions in using complete sentences. MELCs are possibly be to merge and clustered. The learning competencies are merged and clustered. How did we come with MELCs in mother tongue? So we have the process, we retain, replace, merge, or clustered, and drop or discards. We have also to consider the grade level standards. For grade 1, the learner demonstrates basic communication skills in talking about the familiar topics using simple words and both verbal and non-verbal cues to understand. Spoken language shows understanding of basic vocabulary and language structures, reading processes, writing system, and appreciates aspects of one's culture. For grade 2, the learner demonstrates communication skills in talking about variety of topics using developing vocabulary and simple phrases and sentences, simple to complex spoken language using both verbal and non-verbal cues, understands vocabulary and language structure, appreciates and understands the cultural aspect of the language and writing system use, and reads and writes system and short literary and informational texts. For grade 3, the learners demonstrates communication skills in talking about variety of topics using expanding vocabulary and phrases, shows understanding of spoken language in different contexts using both verbal and non-verbal cues, vocabulary and language structures, cultural aspects of the language, reads and writes literary and informational texts. Grade level standards are maintained through the chosen MELCs, as we have discussed a while ago. To use MELCs in mother tongue is another example. Subtask MELCs, grade level or quarter. So grade 2, just the first quarter, the MELCs is give the summary of the story. We have to subdivide it in sub-competencies or subtopics. Give the main idea of the story poem or poem. And another sub-competencies, we have give the correct sequence of 3 to 5 events in the story. And the last one, we have note important details in grade level narrative text, a character, B, setting, C, plot, problem of resolution. 3 is reteach the MELCs as needed. So the sense that the learners did not fully reach your objective, then teacher must reteach the said MELCs. 4, you have to plan. Decide on the duration of MELCs depending on the needs of the learner. So it's high time for the teachers, the principals, and of course, supervisors to revisit the classroom for this purpose. So with that, I give you the word of Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done. Thank you. Maraming salamat po. Stay safe and God bless.